paper that you've worked, for example, you as in the College of Medicine right now, the whole paper that you will do in 3 years time or 3 semesters will be minimized into 300 words, because in the different fora, usually they will ask, or they will give you the words that they would like to number of words that they would like you to present or to give to them. In fact, in counting the words before the word count, or even now, before the word count, they will make a band paper, they will line it up, and then whenever your paper, the abstract, would not fit into that bond paper, it will be thrown away. Doesn't matter if your paper is very good, the title is good, even if you whoever made it, something like that. As long as it does not fit with the requirement of 300 words, it will be not accepted. Okay. So again, part of that, the preliminaries, is also table of contents, and then the list of tables that are being used by the paper, and also the list of figures. Okay, so these are the parts of a research paper. And then for the text, the actual paper, our first is the introduction. So in the introduction, we have the background of the study, and that which we are going to discuss. So we need to know all the parts of the paper, but for first year, I believe we would be from text A and text B. Okay, take note of that one. Okay, so the background of the study, and then the conceptual framework. Okay, and then the statement of the problem, in which we are going to make a lot of discussions later, the hypothesis, the significance of the study, and the scope and delimitation of the study, and the definition of terms. Okay? And for the review of related literature and studies, we have foreign literature, foreign studies, local literature or local studies, and as well as the synthesis and relevance of the studies. Usually, what I do in EVRMC is I join the foreign literature as well as the local literature. So in one context, you have to have the foreign literature, and then you go directly to the local literature. But you can do this one also if for now, for your purpose, I think this would be much more better. And the synthesis and relevance to the studies, which means the synthesis and relevance to the studies is that the reason why you did your study, how or the reasoning behind the purpose of your study is related to the literature as well as to the foreign literature, for local literature, as well as foreign studies and local studies. In fact, this type or this format of review of related literature and studies is very important, especially in those papers or research studies which are not yet well studied, because there are a lot of studies that do not have yet a lot of foreign as well as special local studies. Okay, so when we talk about local studies, we talk about the studies conducted in the Philippines, nationwide, or even locally. That's why I think at present we are more or less into baseline studies, because locally we don't have that much. Even if there were, they are not, or they were not documented. They have issues as to documentations. They have issues as to the write up and technicalities. So research, for me, it changes during the time that was relevant, but at this point in time, the relevance could be different. Okay, so there's no right or wrong answer as we go on, but there is logic that is needed. Aside from logic, we need to understand this the the congruence from the top to bottom. Congruence. When you talk about this one, you talk about, when you talk about, for example, vaccination and among the under 5 years old or under 2 years old, you talk about that one from the top to bottom. You don't go out of the topic, okay? So the next is methodology. So the methods of research to be used, okay? The population frame and the sample size. So the population frame, who are the target population that you wanted to interview or you wanted to get the data, and also the sample size. We'll talk so much about the methodology and the others during your second year or research too. And in fact, this is being coupled with the subject that I'm also going to teach you on your second year, which is biostatistics and epidemiology. Okay. So for now, you have to master the others. Okay. And then instrumentation, which means the instruments that is being used to gather the data, like the survey questionnaire or the other instrumentations that are going to be made. And then data gathering procedure. So the data gathering procedure is the details of how you will make your, how you will do or conduct your study. For example, if you want to do of a survey of women of reproductive age, from which means that these are women who can still bear children, and usually according to WHO it's from 15 to 49 years old, because these are the women that still capable of producing children or they have still menstruation. So you have to identify how you are going to get these samples. Like, you will go to this particular from the municipality, it will be selected, a barangay will be selected, and that from barangay a list will be made, and from the list of women who are aged to list of household, you will go to the you will now go to the household, and at the household, because you only need like one respondent, you will again identify the women of reproductive age in that particular household, and then you will go to the household Okay, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
Doc.
no.
Hello? Okay.
Yes.
And from that, so just imagine the level of data gathering procedure. This is so critical because research, what's important is the methodology, the protocol. The protocol is a very important entity, because as we all know, we are so busy, you have a lot of things to do. But when it comes to the data gathering procedure and when it comes to your protocol, you again go back to how you are going to conduct it so that it should be the same almost always all the time. And if there are two or three who are going to gather with the protocol that is being used, then that will be the basis that you or all of you are doing the same procedure. Okay, so just imagine that process, like what I've told you about. It was a lot quality assurance, we call it lot quality assurance. So from the lots, you get, again, you go directly, not just going directly to the household. And when you go to the household, you look for the wara, because there are a lot of women usually in a household. The Philippines, the usual number of household family size is 4 to 5, and with one or two children who are also female. So for those who belong to that particular age, you will again write them down and do the random sampling. So just imagine how but that is the good basis that you are doing the right thing. So in the data gathering procedure, you have to identify and toto, you have to write it, whatever you did in order to get your data. Okay. And then under the methodology is the statistical treatment of the data, especially if you are going to do um, analytical studies. Not all in the research designs that we are going to discuss. Okay. In the research designs that we are going to discuss, not there are two types which we are going to discuss later.
Sige,
The one that just needs descriptive statistics, and the
Mine.
other one is
Magliligyan mo yan, Nay.
inferential statistics,
Mag-assist
or
yan, no?
wherein you apply statistical treatment of data. So there are two types. Again, in your second year, we're going to discuss more about this one on the statistical treatment of data, wherein
Take na ako, ma'am.
in the analysis of data, you have may mali nga sa ano. Okay. In the analysis of data, you will have to you will have to do things. Either if you did an analytical study or experimental study design, definitely you need to do some statistical treatment. But if you just wanted to know, or if it's just a descriptive study, then descriptive statistics is necessary. And in the statistical treatment of the data, usually we do this if we want to do some inferential statistics. Inferential statistics, which means you make conclusions, or you come up with probabilities of that particular study that you want to validate, or you want to not just validate, you want to look into further into that particular study. And then another part is the presentation, analysis, and interpretation of data. And then summary, conclusions, and recommendations. So in the presentation, you just present everything, the results. You just present it. You don't do any analysis yet. And then in analysis and interpretation, that's the time you will have to do your analysis of your data. And also, especially when the statistical treatment of data was done, then you can then that's also the time that you can push your your analysis, or your probabilities of that particular result. Okay, so in fact, it's a separate entity. In the analysis of data, you can, after presenting, you can put some analysis by looking at the basis from your foreign studies or local studies or foreign literature, and also you can cite them again. Like, you were able to identify the reason that these women chose among the contraceptives that are available is the methods which are modern contraceptions. Aside from the probability that they think something like that in the analysis, so you interpolate all the all the things that you had in the RRL as well as in your results. And then on the last part of the text is the summary, conclusions, and recommendations. For us in public health or in medical health, it's really very important to have recommendations. So in summary, you don't say that, or in conclusion for that matter, you don't say you are 100% sure, but there you just say most likely, highly probable. The probability is very high based on the statistical treatment that you do, on based on the results and on the recommendations. What you will do, or you will put, is the findings that you learned out of the review of related literature, out of the study that you have. For example, when it comes to women of reproductive age, on improving the contraceptive um, reliance, or the contraception, the use of contraceptives. We call that CPR, contraceptive CPR prevalence rate. So we wanted to know, we wanted to know that how can we improve the use of contraceptives among these women. So if you want to know that, and you have learned something out of it in your studies, you can put it in your recommendations. And also, if you are not that sure that your study would be able to elucidate, or would be able to prove that those methodologies are very good, then you can recommend that the further studies could be done with a larger samples or with something like that. Okay, and then on the references, you put bibliography, you put the appendices that you used, And usually in like in EVRMC, we have curriculum vitae. So your CV, who are those who are making the papers? Okay. So one thing is in the study, when in doing the research study, is to focus, which means if you want to focus on this particular entity like IM or OB, then you tackle the issue within that department. Okay. So again, did you take note of this one? Can you just make a screenshot? Can you make a screenshot out of this one, of the parts? Okay. 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 So you have questions so far of the parts of a research paper. Okay. You have questions, guys? You can unmute. Tell me if I'm so fast. Okay? Masayunay lay ni kaya ni niyo tanan. But anyway, we will be focusing on the first parts. Okay? We will be focusing up to the review of related, we'll be focusing up to the review of related literature on the first year. So, and as I've said before, we will focus more on, I want you to focus the research during our research time so that you can have time for your other subjects. And we will do some workshops during that time period that we have, so you can work with you among yourselves. Okay. Okay.